October 14th, 1971, MGM Studios, Culver City, the executive suite on the third floor where careers were made and destroyed with a single conversation. Clint Eastwood sat across from Robert Vogel, MGM's head of production. Not standing, not pacing, just sitting, waiting, watching. Vogel was reviewing Clint's proposal for a new film, a cop thriller, dark, violent, nothing like the westerns Clint had become known for. The office smelled like expensive cigars and old money, wood-paneled walls covered with framed posters of MGM classics. Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, Ben-Hur, the kind of films that won Oscars and defined Hollywood. Clint's Italian westerns weren't on those walls. Vogel finally looked up from the script. His expression wasn't promising. "Eastwood, let me be honest with you." Vogel leaned back in his leather chair. "You're a spaghetti western guy. You do well in Europe. But American audiences? Major studio pictures? That's different." Clint didn't respond, just watched. "Your face," Vogel gestured vaguely. "It's too hard, too intense. American audiences want warmth. They want John Wayne. They want someone they can relate to." Two junior executives sat in chairs along the wall, watching, taking notes, witnesses to what was about to become a legendary moment in Hollywood history. "And your voice," Vogel continued. "It's too quiet, too monotone. Leading men in major pictures need presence. They need to command a screen with their voice." Clint's jaw tightened slightly, the only indication he was hearing this. Vogel stood up, walked around his desk, looked down at Clint. "Wrong face, wrong voice, wrong for MGM." He said it like he was explaining math to a child. The room went silent. This wasn't the first time Clint Eastwood had been told he was wrong. In 1955, Universal Studios had fired him. "You have a chip on your tooth, your Adam's apple sticks out too far, and you talk too slow." Career over before it started. He'd spent years doing bit parts on TV shows, playing cowboys number 3 and 4. Lines like, "The horses are ready, sir." Nothing rolls, forgettable faces. Then Sergio Leone changed everything. A crazy Italian director who wanted to make westerns in Spain. Nobody in Hollywood took it seriously. Spaghetti westerns, they called them. B-movies, cheap knockoffs of real American westerns. But a fistful of dollars made Clint a star. In Europe, in Asia, everywhere except Hollywood. American critics hated the films. Violent, crude, lacking the moral clarity of real westerns. They dismissed Clint as a European phenomenon, not a real movie star, not someone who could carry a major American studio film. By 1971, Clint had directed his first film, Play Misty for Me. Small budget, decent reviews. But Hollywood executives still saw him as the guy who made cheap Italian westerns. That's why he was in Vogel's office, trying to pitch Dirty Harry, a script that had been rejected by everyone. Frank Sinatra had passed. Paul Newman wasn't interested. Steve McQueen said no. Clint wanted it, believed in it. But he needed a major studio. He needed MGM to say yes. Instead, Vogel was saying wrong. "Wrong face, wrong voice, wrong for MGM." Vogel walked back to his desk, picked up Clint's script, held it like it was contaminated. "This script," he dropped it on the desk. "It's too violent. The main character is, what? A vigilante cop? That's not what audiences want in 1971. They want optimism. They want heroes with clear morality. The script is about a cop doing his job when the system fails," Clint said. His voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous. "The system doesn't fail, Eastwood. That's radical thinking. That's counterculture nonsense. MGM makes movies for families, for mainstream America." One of the junior executives shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You made your money playing a man with no name shooting people in dusty villages," Vogel continued. "That worked in Italy, but this is Hollywood, real Hollywood. Not some cheap European knockoff." The insults were deliberate now, calculated. Vogel was establishing dominance, showing Clint his place in the Hollywood hierarchy. We're MGM. We made Gone with the Wind. We made Clark Gable a star. Do you understand the pedigree we're talking about? Vogel sat down. You're asking us to bet millions of dollars on a face that doesn't work for American audiences and a voice that puts people to sleep. Clint stood up slowly. I appreciate your time, he said. Vogel smiled. Eastwood, I'm being honest with you. Take it as a favor. Stop trying to be something you're not. Go back to Europe. Make your westerns. There's no shame in knowing your limits. My limits. Your market, your audience, your level. The word hung in the air like poison. Clint picked up his script, looked at Vogel for a long moment. Then he said something that would haunt Robert Vogel for the rest of his career. I'll remember this conversation. Clint walked out of MGM Studios on October 14th, 1971, carrying a script nobody wanted and a reputation Hollywood didn't respect. The drive back to his house in Carmel was 3 hours. 3 hours to think about what Vogel had said, 3 hours to decide what to do next. Wrong face, wrong voice, wrong for MGM. Most actors would have been crushed, would have questioned themselves, would have gone back to doing what was safe. Clint wasn't most actors. He'd been poor, grew up during the Depression, worked as a lumberjack, a steel worker, dug swimming pools, got fired from Universal for having a chip on his tooth, spent years being told he'd never make it. And every single time someone told him he couldn't, he proved them wrong. That night, Clint made 3 phone calls. First call, Don Siegel, director. Don, I've got a script. Everyone's passing on it. I think it's going to be huge. Are you interested? Siegel had worked with Clint before, trusted his instincts. Send it over. Second call, Warner Brothers. Not MGM, not Universal. Warner Brothers, a studio that was struggling and willing to take risks on unconventional projects. I've got a cop thriller, Dirty Harry. I'll do it for scale. No big salary, but I want back-end points, and I want creative control. Warner Brothers was interested. A Clint Eastwood movie, even a risky one, was worth gambling on, especially if he was willing to work cheap up front. Third call, his agent. Get me meetings with every studio that passed on me. I want them to know I'm making this film, and I want them to remember they said no. That last call wasn't about the movie. It was about something else. Revenge. Not the violent kind. The kind that's much more satisfying. The kind where you prove everyone wrong and make them watch you succeed. Dirty Harry went into production in April 1972, 6 months after the MGM meeting. Budget, $4 million. Small by Hollywood standards. Star, Clint Eastwood, the guy with the wrong face. Nobody in Hollywood was talking about it. No buzz, no excitement, just another cop movie. While they filmed in San Francisco, Robert Vogel was at MGM greenlighting big-budget projects with real stars. Films that would surely define the year. Nobody at MGM was thinking about Clint Eastwood anymore. That was their first mistake. Clint approached every scene like a man with something to prove. The character wasn't loud or theatrical. He was quiet, intense, menacing. Everything Vogel said wouldn't work. The most famous scene in the film almost didn't happen. The "Do you feel lucky" speech. Clint delivered it in one take. Quiet, controlled. That wrong voice creating one of the most iconic moments in cinema history. Don Siegel watched the dailies and knew they had something special. This is going to be controversial. Critics are going to hate it. Clint smiled. Good. The film wrapped in June. Release date, December 23rd, 1971. Christmas week. The dumping ground for film studios didn't believe in. Warner Brothers wasn't confident. No major marketing push, no Oscar campaign. Meanwhile, at MGM, Robert Vogel was preparing the studio's big Christmas release. A major musical, the kind of film that won Academy Awards. He'd completely forgotten about Clint Eastwood. That was his second mistake. December 23rd, 1971. Dirty Harry opened in theaters across America. First weekend box office, $4 million. The entire production budget recovered in 3 days. Second weekend, $5.2 million. The film wasn't dropping, it was growing. Audiences were lining up around blocks, not in New York or Los Angeles. in Middle America, in the cities where real audiences lived. The people MGM claimed wouldn't accept Clint's wrong face. They loved him. The character Harry Callahan became an instant cultural phenomenon. "Do you feel lucky, punk?" entered the American vocabulary overnight. People quoted it at parties and offices, on college campuses. That wrong voice, that quiet, controlled delivery, it terrified audiences, made them lean forward in their seats, made every word matter. By January 1972, Dirty Harry was the #1 film in America. The reviews were mixed. Some critics loved it. Others called it fascist propaganda. But nobody could deny the box office. $36 million domestic, $72 million worldwide, from a $4 million budget. One of the most profitable films of 1971. Meanwhile, MGM's big Christmas musical opened to empty theaters. Critical disaster. Box office bomb. Lost the studio millions. And Robert Vogel, the man who told Clint Eastwood he had the wrong face and wrong voice for major studio pictures? He watched Dirty Harry break box office records and realized he'd made the biggest mistake of his career. But the consequences were just beginning, because Clint Eastwood had a very good memory, and Hollywood was about to learn what happens when you dismiss someone who refuses to stay dismissed. February 1972. Robert Vogel was called into a meeting with MGM's board of directors. They wanted to know why MGM had passed on Dirty Harry. "We had the script first," one board member said. "Eastwood came to us. You told him no." Vogel tried to explain. "The script was too violent. The character was too dark. You didn't think a film would make $72 million from a $4 million budget?" Silence. "Warner Brothers is laughing at us. Clint Eastwood is the biggest star in America right now. And we told him he had the wrong face." Within 3 months, Robert Vogel was no longer head of production at MGM. The official story, mutual decision to pursue other opportunities. The real story, fired, humiliated, career destroyed. Vogel tried to find work at other studios, but Hollywood is a small town. Word travels fast. Everyone knew he was the executive who passed on Dirty Harry, who told Clint Eastwood he wasn't right for major studio pictures. Nobody wanted to hire the man who made that mistake. By 1974, Vogel had left the film industry completely, moved to Arizona, tried real estate, failed. The man who once controlled which films MGM made couldn't get a meeting with any studio in Hollywood. He had disappeared. Not literally, but professionally, Robert Vogel ceased to exist the moment Dirty Harry became a phenomenon. Years later, a journalist tracked Vogel down, asked him about the MGM meeting with Clint. "I was wrong," Vogel said quietly. "I was completely, utterly wrong." That interview never ran. Nobody cared about Robert Vogel anymore. The Dirty Harry phenomenon changed Hollywood in ways nobody predicted. Suddenly, studios were looking for anti-heroes, dark characters, quiet leading men, actors who didn't fit the traditional mold. Clint Eastwood became one of the biggest box office stars of the 1970s. Dirty Harry spawned 4 sequels. Every single one was profitable, but more importantly, Clint proved something that terrified studio executives. You didn't need their approval to become a star. After Dirty Harry, Clint started his own production company, Malpaso Productions. He produced, directed, and starred in his own films. Took projects studios passed on, made them successful. The Outlaw Josie Wales, rejected by every major studio. Clint made it himself. Box office hit. Unforgiven. Dark, violent, complex. Studios said it was too depressing. Clint made it anyway. Won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. He built a career on being wrong for Hollywood. And in doing so, he redefined what Hollywood could be. Young actors and directors started following Clint's model. If studios said no, make it yourself. If executives said you're wrong, prove them wrong. The studio system that had controlled Hollywood for decades started cracking. Power shifted from executives to talent, and it all traced back to October 14th, 1971, to a meeting where Robert Vogel told Clint Eastwood he had the wrong face, wrong voice, wrong everything. Vogel meant it as rejection. Clint heard it as a challenge. By 1990, Clint Eastwood had become more than a movie star. He was a director, a producer, an icon. Unforgiven won Best Picture in 1993. Clint won Best Director. Standing on that Oscar stage, he became only the fourth person in history to win Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor Oscars, all with that wrong face. MGM, meanwhile, was collapsing. Bad decisions, failed films, financial disasters. In 2005, Sony bought MGM's film library. The studio that made Gone with the Wind no longer existed as an independent entity. Clint's production company, Malpaso, still thriving. He'd made over 40 films as a director, most of them profitable, many of them classics. And every time a studio executive suggested he was too old, too quiet, too unconventional, Clint would make another film that proved them wrong. At 91 years old, he was still directing, still acting, still working. The man who was wrong for Hollywood outlasted the executives who rejected him, outlasted the studios that dismissed him, because talent doesn't have an expiration date. And revenge, the kind where you simply outlive and outwork everyone who doubted you, is the sweetest revenge of all. In 2019, a young filmmaker named Sarah Chen sat in a production office. A studio executive was reviewing her script. "It's too dark, too unconventional. This won't work for mainstream audiences." Sarah felt her dreams crumbling. "I don't think you're right for this kind of project. Maybe try something smaller." Sarah left that meeting devastated, sat in her apartment wondering if she should give up. Then she remembered a story everyone in Hollywood knows. October 14th, 1971. An MGM executive telling Clint Eastwood he had the wrong face, wrong voice, wrong everything. And what Clint did next. Sarah pulled out her script, found an independent producer who believed in it, shot the film on a micro budget. It won Sundance, sold to a streaming platform for $15 million, became one of the most watched films of the year. When asked what inspired her, Sarah smiled. "Someone told Clint Eastwood he was wrong for Hollywood. He made Dirty Harry and proved everyone wrong. If Clint could do it, why couldn't I?" That's the real legacy of October 14th, 1971. Not just that Clint became a star, but that he proved rejection isn't the end. It's fuel. When someone tells you you're wrong, you have two choices: believe them and quit, or prove them wrong and succeed. Clint chose the second option, so the next time someone tells you you're wrong, remember Robert Vogel, the man who thought he was protecting MGM. And remember what happened to him. He disappeared. While Clint became immortal, wrong face, wrong voice, wrong for Hollywood, and absolutely, completely, undeniably right.